Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests.
Good morning.
What an erudite group. It's kind of nice to take a break and have a little bit to eat in between our first session and our second session, is it? I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope you're all ready to talk a little bit, because as Toastmasters, we come together to learn. We learn through practice, we learn through observation, we learn from each other. It's a really amazing experience. And I've been giving some thought to memories. What makes a great memory? Now, what brought this to mind recently was I was reminiscing in my mind of a trip to Tallahassee. And that's where I went to college, and we were staying with two friends who met the first month we were in college. And now, one marriage, two careers, two kids, one house, and one marriage, and 5 grandchildren. These people are pretty extraordinary. Valerie and Everett, I always thought of them when we were in college as camp counselors because they were always organizing everybody for fun things to do. And they are great parents. And we spent a lot of time talking that night about what makes a great parent. And when I came back, Everett sent me a little clipping. Now, this clipping is by Sidney Harris, who is deceased, but he was a columnist in Chicago, and he had a nationally syndicated column called Strictly Personal. And in this little bitty clipping, Everett really summed it up for how he felt about parenting. And it has to do with memories. What Sidney tells us, it always surprises me that so few parents realize that the best things you can give your children, next to good habits, are good memories. Because good memories will support and nourish you throughout your lifetime. Pretty erudite, wouldn't you say? So I started thinking about that, and I realized that we all have memories, and I want to share a few of mine with you. My warmest memories of childhood are of my father, who happened to be a very astute parent. And he was very observant. I never heard him say a cuss word in his entire life, ever. He never told you you did bad. He always said, you'll do better next time. And he was very thoughtful. So let me tell you a couple of things that he did that I cherish and are wonderful memories for me. You know when you're really little bitty and you're always having to wash your hands, go wash your hands, go wash your hands. You're always having to wash your hands. But that bowl is way up there. And those handles are really stiff, particularly when your hands are all soapy. Well, if Daddy was around, he would come in behind you and he would lift you up on his knees so that you were at the bowl. He would turn on the faucets. He would soap up his hands, and then he would take yours and his were giant. He was 6'5", he was a big man. And you would wash your hands together. Now, what was so wonderful about this is you felt really special. But also, you were starting to feel kind of confident about being able to do it yourself. And that was my dad. Another thing he did, in the summer, we would go to the beach because it was a great, cheap vacation. We only lived 11 miles from the beach, but for kids, it felt like 100 miles. One, because we were in a car with no air conditioning, and two, because when we got to the Intercoastal Waterway, which was the last big thing before the beach, the bridge was always up, and some boat was going under, and we would be so antsy. But when the bridge went down, it was well worth the wait. And what Daddy would do, because we were 4 of us and we had to take turns, he'd take one hand in this hand and another kid's hand in this hand, and he would drag us through the surf. He was like our surfboard, and he would drag us through the surf. And it was so exciting. We would squeal with delight, but we also felt safe, because it's kind of scary when you're a little kid at the beach. We love the beach. Wonderful memory. The next one was very personal, because when I was in high school, I worked part-time at a grocery store. And I worked frequently at night, the night shift for 4 hours, and if I didn't have plans with my friends or maybe even a date, Daddy would pick me up. And he would always bring 2 things. He would pick me up, take me home, and he would bring cold beer and Polish sausage. And I don't think I was 18 yet, but we drank cold beer and ate Polish sausage, and there were no container laws back then. We were sitting in the car drinking our beer, and we would tell each other about our day. And it was a really special time with him to drink beer, and I never think of Polish sausage ever again without thinking of Daddy. But I'll tell you the most special, the most thoughtful was when I went away to college, he began a weekly habit, of sending me an envelope every week. And when my sister left and went to Oregon, he did the same for her. Now, sometimes the envelope would have a letter, sometimes the envelope would have a note, sometimes it would have a receipt, sometimes it would have a clipping of somebody that got married or perhaps died. And then there was a farm bulletin. I never quite understood that, but he would clip from the farm bulletin. So I would get all sorts of information about the weather and crops and recipes. Not quite sure why he did it, but every week that envelope was filled and went out. And when he died, after his funeral, we went back to clear off his desk. There was 2 envelopes on his desk, one for Liz and one for Kay. He did that he did that all the way through until he died. Extraordinary memories, even of the farm bulletin. So, what does make a special memory? Why is it so important? And if you think about it, it's the things that people do that are special. In fact, I want to go back to Sidney Harris because he finishes by saying, sometimes parents, and all of us, are so busily engaged in instilling good habits that we do it at the sacrifice of memories. And so if you sit back and think, what makes a great memory? It might be by a parent, it might be by a friend or another family member, it might be by a stranger. But it's something that somebody does that is thoughtful, that provokes a smile for you, perhaps a laugh. But those are the things that sustain us through life. And for all of you, I hope you have many memories.